Okay, so this Tekken isn't where I personally started. While the game came out in 1994 at Japanese arcades, and then throughout 1995 in the rest of the world, I was only 4 years old, and my main exposure to fighting games at this point was, well, nothing. I first remember playing this Tekken when hiring it with a friend when I was about 8 years old. His dad was in the film industry, and their garage doubled as a theatre, where they would often invite people over to watch classic films, such as King Kong. I stayed the night, and we had the opportunity to connect his PlayStation and the Sega Master System to the projector, where we played Tekken and Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Yes, the Master System version of Sonic, where he has the hang glider on the cover. At this point in time, button mashing would be the only way to describe my playstyle. Not that revisiting the game has made me look that impressive. Anyway, this made the arcade mode quite challenging, but exciting, as we'd take turns mashing buttons to unlock the secret characters. I remember both of us being pretty impressed with what Kuma looked like. Speaking of secret characters, I also spent an absurd amount of time that night trying to 100% Gallagher at the start, so I got to unlock Devil. This was something I knew from a magazine. Anyway, let's talk about Nina, as is the purpose of this video. This is the game where she was first introduced to the world, and the story has changed a little bit. Originally, it said she was a silent assassin. She learned assassination techniques from her father and Aikido for self-protection from her mother. Therefore, she has an outstanding fighting sense. She was sent to assassinate Heihachi Mishima, the sponsor of the tournament, but her real intentions are not clear. While the instruction manual bios differed between regions, we still got some insight into the character, in other areas too, including her age, height and weight, blood type, and even her interests, including Tom from Tom and Jerry, tea with milk, and scotch. As you'd expect, the move lists in this game aren't nearly as extensive as later titles. Tekken 8 she has more than 100 moves. Tekken 4 she probably has more than 100 moves. In this one she has much less. We're looking about 30, just over 30, plus a few generic ones I guess. She has a number of moves that people will recognise in later games. The most memorable ones would include her blonde bomb, which is only input as forward 1+2 in this game, her can opener, up forward 4-3-4, her creeping snake plus some extensions, the down forward 3-2, flash kicks, the down forward 3-3-3-4, her jumping flip throw, up forward 1+2 in later games, but forward 1+3 in this, her backhand slap multi-throws, the quarter circle forward 1+2 multi-throw in later Tekkens, with the inputs for some of the remote routes that even remain in Tekken 8. And then of course her 10-hit combos, but only one of the variations exists in this game, starting from either a 1 or a down forward 1. There's one move in particular though that Nina has always had, but really takes the spotlight in Tekken, and you've probably noticed it from the gameplay that I'm displaying. That is her forward flip kick, forward 4. In later games, you can tech roll as you hit the ground, and if you don't, you risk taking damage and the opponent recovers before you. However, in this game, you cannot tech roll, but if the opponent blocks the move, you have time to stand up and do whatever you want. This can allow a free creeping snake into a knockdown with down forward 3-2-4, which gives Nina, guess what, a guaranteed forward 4. From what I understand, it is possible to stand up and block the forward 4 after that knockdown, but that will just give Nina another free combo, looping into the same situation again. If the opponent can stand up fast enough to block it, they can also stand up and deliberately be hit by it, which will leave them recovering before Nina and able to hit her while she's grounded. However, that still implies that it's guaranteed in that situation. Having moves with immense stun on block isn't unique to Nina. I believe the most well-known example in this game is King's down forward 1. I remember hearing from very early days of playing fighting games that King was the strongest character because he had a punch that on block would give him a free punch again. Of course, it can give him much more than that. If you watch here, you'll see Michelle actually get up and get hit by the forward 4, then do a bow and arrow. I don't believe I could have blocked that. I might have been able to. You can also see me take advantage of back roll catches. Do remember that while this game is a 3D game, the gameplay is only 2D at this stage. So the opponent can't tech roll, they can stand up, they can get up forwards, or they can get up backwards. The game does feel quite slow compared to later Tekkens, as you'd expect. Oh, let's take advantage again. Oh look, spring kick! I forgot about spring kick, another way they can get up. Yeah, the game does feel a bit slower than others, and when you get on the ground, there's a lot of time, or a lot of recovery before you can actually get up. And that's where a lot of grounded hits are guaranteed. Backward movement is very good though, and you can still KBD, really. That is Korean backdash. Another thing is, there aren't as many launches. For Nina, as an example, her only proper launcher is down forward 2 in this game, which has abysmal range. But you do have these knockdowns into free hits. The console version, and of course the arcade version, doesn't have a practice mode for this game either. So unless you have a player 2, it's kinda hard to test things. Also, people haven't really documented frame data as far as I can tell. I'm sure it's possible, you could go frame by frame and figure things out, but I'm sorry, I don't have the time. I'm not going to do that. I did try and dig through the forums of Tekken Zaibatsu, or the remnants of it, but even then I couldn't find it for Tekken 1. I could find the move list, I could find the character bios, that was about it. Oh, and there were some character guides, but they were effectively just the move list. Another thing which I'm going to mention over and over again in this video series is that where I live, well, where I grew up, New Zealand, all these things were released in PAL, which is 50 frames per second instead of 60 frames per second. So when I say this game feels quite slow, it feels even slower than you're probably envisioning. Another universal mechanic, which everyone is pretty familiar with now, which doesn't exist yet, is low parrying. So lows were a lot stronger in this game because you couldn't low parry them, and this actually also made 10-hit combos quite viable. You also had things like Law's 1-1-1 punches, which actually jailed the whole time. So a lot less risk involved with these things compared to in later games. So let's talk a bit about Anna Williams. She is Nina's younger sister and eternal rival in the Tekken series. She appears as Nina's sub-boss in the arcade mode of Tekken, and beating this mode with Nina unlocks Anna as a playable character on the console release of the game. There is an undying belief that Anna was simply a palette swap, or a clone character of Nina in the earlier games. Most of the moves are identical here, but you will see that she also has 2 flip attacks which she uses that Nina doesn't have. So I guess you could say she's a clone character, but 2 different moves when you've only got about 30 moves is still quite significant compared to clone characters later in Tekken. They also put the effort into giving Anna her own voice lines, whereas even Heihachi had to share his with the Jacks in this game. Anyway, she's kicking my ass here, so I'm going to have to pull out some of the cheap tactics to win. Well, this isn't working. Guess we'll have to try again. The other sub-boss characters, unplayable in the arcade but unlockable in console, include Armor King, Ganryu, Kuma, Kunimitsu, Lee, P-Jack, Wang, and then the final boss, Heihachi, and the unlockable through Gallagher, like I said, Devil, which Devil was literally just a palette swap. I cannot let her beat me a second time. I need to do this. I think the moral here is I need to do more forward 4. But what's she doing getting hit by it? She should be blocking. And here you can see that Nina still can't low crush things well. Phew. Okay, now on to the final boss. Surely he won't be that difficult, will he? Anyway, I do hope that everyone's enjoyed seeing and hearing about Nina in the first Tekken, as well as my initial experiences with the game back when I was newly discovering what fighting games even were. I think it's interesting that while the character has evolved over the series, the main moves a lot of people know her for don't even exist yet, such as her sidestep 1 snake shot and while standing 1 fluttering butterflies. On the other hand, she still has moves like Blonde Bomb forward 1+2, Can Opener up forward 4-3-4, and her front flip kick forward 4. Though, with how this game functions, these moves are much more threatening and key to her success, the long range guard breaking flip kick being the most obvious one. It's nice to see that while the character does function differently in future games, part of her identity is maintained through not only her story, but her gameplay. I hope you've enjoyed my retrospective look at the original Tekken.